Hello, my name's Chubblot, but because we're friends, you can call me Chubblot. Since the dawn of 3D modelling, video game levels have gotten more and more extreme in scale. But one thing that most, if not all 3D games have in common is the need to contain those levels somehow. A terrifying abyss-like void is one option. But another option that most developers go for is a skybox. Wikipedia defines a skybox as no, we're not doing that. You know what a skybox is, you've seen them before. They are the sky, or space, or sometimes the endless void within which a map is contained. Skyboxes can be one block color, or they can be more functional, helping to simulate a day and night cycle, or being used as storage for assets the game needs, but not right now. Really, the only major change to skyboxes over the years has been how much stuff developers can cram into them. But you know what they say, it isn't about the size, it's about what you do with it, or about what you put into it. This is a bad analogy. And that brings us very elegantly to the subject of today's video. What happens if by some feat of dedication and ingenuity, coupled with 11 uninterrupted minutes of swearing, you manage to unceremoniously shunt your way into the normally untraversable skybox of Baldur's Gate 3? Well, some weird stuff. This video will contain Datamined content and spoilers. If you've already played through the game, you may have noticed some discrepancies in load times depending on where you're loading into. Load a save in the tutorial level and you'll be in pretty quickly, but load a save in the main game and you'll be waiting a little bit longer. One of the major reasons for this is that the tutorial takes place in what appears to be a completely separate skybox, which contains the Nautiloid level and very little else. Even without breaking the bounds of conventional level design, this becomes apparent if you enter the level up screen during the tutorial. The skybox visible behind the foliage on the level up screen is very clearly depicting Avernus whizzing by. In the main game, however, you get a sunny blue sky. On the topic of load times, one thing that really impressed me with Baldur's Gate 3 is the apparent lack of them when transitioning between areas. Even fast travelling from the Grove to the depths of the Underdark, all you get is a brief fade to black and then you're there. Conversely, loading into the main game after completing the tutorial takes a bit of time. This is because the skybox for what Larian are calling Act 1A actually contains everything. Every map except for the tutorial map exists in the same skybox, all constantly loaded and populated. So yes, even when you're not watching her, Shadowheart probably is standing in camp taking the tadpole removal into her own hands. But beyond the maps we can officially and unofficially access, there are a few more interesting locations. There are 2 elevator platforms hidden away that I assume will be used for cutscenes in the future. There's a dark forest used as the backdrop for scenes like Astarian's Dream of Cazador.
Where are you? Show yourself!
And despite what I said earlier, a trimmed down version of the Nautiloid actually does exist in Act 1A's skybox. The reason it isn't complete is because you only see it in the crashing cutscene. You can also find the area that seems to be used for character creation and the dream sequences. The stone gazebo houses the one you dream about at night and oh, Mr. Halson, fancy meeting you here. And this familiar little area is the character creation and level up screen. When you click level up, the camera just moves to a fixed position on this map. And it turns out your character isn't even really here. The game loads a copy of your character model, but your actual character stays in their original position. I tried to have a little fun with this, but while I was trying to spin Halson around for that beautiful photo op, I accidentally triggered combat with him. In the level up screen, he summoned a wolf. But as my other grandmother always used to say, the road to true love is paved with mauling. She was so wise. Anyway, I stumbled on this little patch of land occupied by Will's patron, Mizora. Kinda rude that he's running around looking for her and she's just chilling on a big Minecraft dirt block. I can only speculate, but I imagine she's here because if you're playing Will as your origin character, one of the mechanics related to him is the ability to contact her using his Sending Stone eye.
Ugh, my eye. Mizora's trying to contact me.
Oh, actually, wait 1 second. Let me just... Yes, great. Much better.
Meanwhile...
There's also a strange underground area that holds a chest and a ladder. Inside the chest is a key, allegedly for Ethel's tea house. And ascending the ladder actually puts you in front of the bookcase in Ethel's shack, and I couldn't figure out anything else to do with this. Another area filled with unreleased content is a map I've tentatively called AA Room. And you'll never guess why, or maybe you will. This map seems to be purely for storing objects and characters the game wants easy access to. For example, this is where the skiffs from the encounter on the lake hang out when you're not on the lake. This is also where Shovel the Quasit resides when not summoned, and where Ormelum hangs out until Blurg calls him into existence during the conversation in the Underdark. If you do speak to Ormelum while on this map, he and your character are teleported to the Underdark.
What knowledge do you seek?
But only for the duration of your conversation. If you've ever gone searching for Ormelum thinking you could meet him before the scripted encounter, this is why you haven't found him. Also located in AA Room are 9 books called demo books, and they all describe an apparent effect that should be triggered on using the book. These might have been used to show off specific sections of Act 1 during development, but like many things in this room, they don't currently do anything. And now the slightly juicier unreleased content. There will be spoilers for an upcoming side quest or 3. There are 3 NPCs in AA Room that relate to unimplemented side quests. I'll go through them all one by one, starting with Spencer. Story-wise, there's very little to say about Spencer. The references I can find to him in the files suggest he's a monster hunter who is related to some sort of vampire encounter. It's also suggested he and Will have some amount of history. Interestingly enough, Spencer's role may have changed during development. A book linked to Spencer, which appears to be a wanted poster for Cazador, Astarion's old master, is marked as depreciated in the game's script. This might mean we won't be receiving this content, or if we do, it may be in a different form.
I watch you every night.
However, there is one last tidbit of intrigue related to Spencer. He has 3 specific abilities bound to his character: Searing Smite, Lay on Hands, and Turn Undead. This puts him about as close as you can get to a paladin in the current build. And unlike Anders, he isn't relying on his equipment for any of these abilities.
I may have broken that oath, but the blade retains its power.
If we assume that unimplemented NPCs stored in this room are arriving imminently, then the prediction that patch 4 might include the Paladin class may not be far off. The second NPC is Norella, a tiefling in a very pretty dress, but not as pretty as mine. Norella comes with her own bench, and unlike Spencer, you can interact with her. Speaking to her teleports you to the Grove, where she will say,
"Please, I'd like a moment alone."
Well, obviously we can't leave it at that, so I went digging through the sound files and I think I've come up with Norella's story. She's had a pretty terrible time.
We met Knowles on the road. I got away, but my husband, my daughter... My daughter, she thought they were just big dogs. I tried to get to her, but...
So she has to sell a music box that her partner made for her daughter.
My husband made it to keep our little monster quiet. Traded one headache for another, really. I don't have anything else. My husband was carrying our packs when the Knowles found us. You must think I'm a monster. But they say you need coin to enter the city. Bribes.
Plot twist, turns out she's just another tiefling grifter.
All right, fine. This little swindle is meant for soft hearts, not keen eyes. I'll just find another box and work another idiot. Like always. If you're looking for the real swindlers here, keep an eye on the children. They're building a stash in that cave. Too tight a squeeze for me. Almost makes me wish I did have a daughter.
You're tacky and I hate you.
She does have the box on her, and if you mysteriously acquire it somehow, you can use it once to restore some health and play a jingle. The final NPC is easily my favourite. It's a tiefling child called Lotan, and thankfully he seems to be anything but a scam artist. Lotan's father was lost at sea, and his mother ended up becoming a priestess of Umberlee.
He was a sailor back in Elturel. Then the waves took him. And Mum changed. She started putting things in the Chionthar. Mum said Umberlee took Dad to the bottom of the ocean because he wasn't faithful.
Umberlee is an evil sea goddess and one of the many deities that isn't currently selectable by a cleric or paladin.
You have been stopped.
But if you want a small fragment of her power, you're going to want to finish Lotan's quest. Unfortunately, Lotan is yet another tragic tiefling child. Oh my god, Larian, did you really need to make the evil playthrough less appealing?
This is not the way!
Lotan's mother was villainized for her worship of Umberlee, and Lotan sort of implies that things did not end well for her.
They said my mum was a cultist. There's no cult. She worshipped Umberlee, but Mum couldn't give offerings on the road. She died before we got here. I wonder if Mum is happy in the sea.
Lotan's considerable trauma has manifested as a compulsion to collect seashells and return them to the sea.
I've got to offer them back to the water. You're supposed to. If you make the Queen of the Depths mad, she'll have the sea eat you. So I need more shells. I don't want to get eaten.
But it sounds like his collection has been stolen by one of the other children. Give the kid a break.
Mattis probably stole all the shells. He knows I need them.
You're able to bring Lotan seashells, and as you do, he'll trade them for certain items.
I've got a bracelet, a bottle with something gooey in it, and a weird paper. I have a pretty stone too, but the Queen gave it to me.
This is where Umberlee's divine influence apparently comes into play. At least 2 of the many items you can receive from Lotan have magical abilities, with one of them honestly being far too useful to ignore. Lotan's prized possession is the female dog queen's blessing.
Watch your profanity.
It's a one-time use magical item that can cast a powerful charm spell on everyone around the caster. But since it can only be used once period, rather than say once per long rest, I can't see that this item will be particularly sought after. To make up for that though, we also have the Cup of Endless Water, which is a cup that is full of water that happens to be endless. No, really. Using the cup from your action bar allows you to create a water surface in front of you with a pretty respectable range. This functions like a close range create water spell. It'll douse fires, clear up acid, and even bring those pesky thralls back to their senses. Oh no. For some reason it deals fire damage, so maybe it's actually the Cup of Endless Napalm. But I found this much better than having to worry about if someone in my party has access to the create water spell. Especially seeing how often dangerous surfaces seem to crop up. So what is your opinion on these 3? I found Lotan to be the most compelling, and I will protect him with my life. We don't know too much about Spencer, but I like the idea of a potential halfling paladin vampire slayer. And Norella is straight trash. She's an actual garbage person. Now, as sort of an extra little tidbit, we're going to wrap things up by looking at another skybox altogether, specifically the skybox for Act 1B. There's literally nothing here. I'm sorry if I got your hopes up. Trying to level up here looks quite different, but as you can see from the little willy in the distance there, it works the same way as the Act 1A level up screen. The mini-map seems to be mostly complete, but there are still signs of it being a work in progress. If we assume, there's that word again, that the map in its current form is even halfway correct, then Act 1B looks to be a pretty respectable size. But as always when talking about Datamined content, all of this is subject to change. And finally, it's time to say thank you for waiting and thank you for watching. So thank you, Ms. Chenand Labong, for watching. Bye-bye.
Hey, you. You're finally awake.